Just weeks ago, it looked like a new era of UK-US cooperation was about to begin. Promises were made, handshakes exchanged, and a deal seemed all but certain. But something's changed, and fast. Now, Keir Starmer is stepping into a transatlantic battle no one saw coming. With tensions rising and deadlines looming, Britain finds itself on the edge of a high-stakes confrontation with Washington. So what went wrong? Why is the Prime Minister hinting at retaliation? And how did this so-called special relationship spiral into a potential economic showdown? Let's get into it. But first, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel for more. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has claimed the UK is ready to retaliate against US tariffs just weeks after Donald Trump vowed to spare Britain from his trade war. The government is currently engaged in last-minute talks with the White House ahead of a 25% tax on car imports and potential broader tariffs on other goods, set to take effect on April 2nd. Britain is seeking an exemption, arguing that, unlike other nations, the UK has a relatively balanced trade relationship with the US. Starmer has expressed a desire to avoid a trade war. US President Donald Trump has imposed a series of tariffs on goods from other countries, claiming the measures will support American manufacturers and protect jobs, despite concerns that they could lead to higher prices for consumers. The tariffs on vehicle imports to the US will begin on April 3rd, with taxes on parts expected to start in May or later. A government source said, "We won't stop trying to negotiate a UK exemption even after Trump's deadline." If the tariffs are implemented, it remains unclear what form of retaliation the UK might take. Several options are on the table, ranging from imposing duties on sectors where British products are vital to the US, to targeting specific items like Harley-Davidson motorcycles. One expert told the BBC that the most drastic and least likely option would be to target financial services. However, despite the UK's threats, ministers are keen to avoid a trade war. The PM said earlier this week that the UK would not be jumping into one with the US, adding the government was carrying out intense negotiations to avoid tariffs and would be pragmatic and clear-eyed in its response. The Independent Office for Budget Responsibility has cautioned that a retaliatory trade war would significantly harm economic growth, potentially erasing the surplus the Chancellor has set aside to adhere to her self-imposed fiscal rules. The latest comments come just weeks after Donald Trump promised Britain would be spared from his trade war and could be in line for a trade agreement in an Oval Office sit-down with the Prime Minister. Just hours after slapping down the EU and hailing Brexit as the right thing at the right time, the tariff-happy president said a deal was in line to come very quickly. "We're going to have a great trade agreement," Trump said. "We're going to end up with a very good trade agreement for both countries, and we're working on that as we speak." Starmer, a few minutes later, promised that he and Trump will work on a new economic deal with advanced technology at its core. Former Labour Minister and Chair of the Commons Treasury Select Committee Dame Meg Hillier has warned that the government's commitment to free trade will be tested in the coming weeks due to Trump's tariffs. The US president has claimed the 25% levy would lead to tremendous growth, promising it would spark new jobs and investments in the US. However, there are worries that it would lead to a temporary pause in car production in the US, increase prices, and strain ally relationships. Last year, the US imported around 8 million cars. Mexico was the top supplier of cars, followed by South Korea, Japan, Canada, and Germany. The imports accounted for about $240 billion or £186 billion in trade, and roughly half of overall sales. According to car industry body, the Society of Motor Manufacturers and Traders, SMMT, UK car exports are worth about £7.6 billion per year, and the US is the second largest market for UK cars after the EU. SMMT said Trump's announcement was not surprising, but nevertheless disappointing. In other news, actor Idris Elba has emerged as Labour's top choice to replace Sadiq Khan as London mayor, according to a Labour insider. The 52-year-old star, best known for playing Detective John Luther in the hit BBC series, is being eyed by Labour bosses as a potential candidate for City Hall. Elba, who was born and raised in Hackney, East London, has increasingly moved into activism alongside his acting career. Sir Sadiq Khan, who has held the mayoral office since 2016, is expected to step down before the next election, which will likely be held in 2028. The Luther Star has worked closely with Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer on initiatives to tackle knife crime and youth violence. Last year, Elba joined Starmer at number 10 as part of a drive to prevent young people from being drawn into gang violence. A senior Labour source told the media, "Idris has star appeal, but he is also a thoughtful political campaigner. Labour have a choice about who we choose to run in London. We can pick a Labour insider and try to make them famous, or we can pick someone famous aligned with Labour. Idris would be at the absolute top of our wish list," they added. Labour insiders believe Elba's popularity and influence could make him a formidable contender, though some acknowledge that convincing him to run would be challenging. Other potential candidates include Labour MPs Dawn Butler, Stella Creasy, and Rosanna Allen Khan, who are all reportedly eyeing the London mayor job. Entrepreneur and Dragon's Den star Deborah Meaden is another name that has been tipped as a potential candidate. Knife crime remains the main focus of Elba's activism, with the actor leading a documentary, Idris Elba, Our Knife Crime Crisis, that explored the UK's knife crime epidemic through interviews with young offenders, victims' families, and policymakers. During his documentary work, he shared insights from visiting young offenders. These young people aren't the big and scary figures they're often portrayed as. They're still developing, still trying to find their way. It's sad. Elba discussed feeling overwhelmed and angry at the constant flux of young people murdering each other 5 years ago, which ultimately brought him to his activism journey. He has also advocated for practical solutions to knife crime, telling BBC Radio 4, "Not all kitchen knives need to have a point on them. You can still cut your food without the point on your knife." Current Mayor Khan himself has faced pressure for his handling of the crime epidemic currently gripping the capital. Shadow Home Secretary Chris Philp MP, while speaking with the media, accused the mayor of chasing headlines over chasing criminals. He also blasted the mayor as the worst police and crime commissioner of any of the 43 police forces across England and Wales. More recently, chairman of London Cab Drivers Club Grant Davis claimed that London is unsafe, and Khan does not care about the welfare of the city to the People's Channel. Finally, the royal family have issued a touching tribute to the late Queen Elizabeth and all mothers to mark Mother's Day. The official social media page also acknowledged those who were missing theirs on the major annual celebration. A black and white photo showed a young King Charles and Princess Anne attending the Royal Windsor Horse Show with the late Queen Elizabeth in 1956. The second image remembered the Queen's late mother, Rosalind, with her eldest grandson, Tom. Queen Elizabeth II was a mother of 4 to King Charles, Prince Andrew, Princess Anne, and Prince Edward. She served as the Queen of England from February 6, 1952, until her death in September 2022. What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comment section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you, take care, goodbye.